Welcome to writing question number 2. As you see, I have the parts of the question on the board. There's really just two main parts. You get a question, and then 30 minutes to write an essay that answers that question. The question is always asking for your opinion, and it 95% of the time asks you to choose one of two sides. Do you agree or do you disagree? Which view do you think is best, right? Now, I have here outline and write because those are the important things that you have to do. And the reason why I did this is to show you that the outline is very, very, very important. In my experience, whenever I've seen students write an essay and just start typing right away after they read the question, their essays, on average, are usually worse in certain ways than those students who create an outline. So what that means is they spend 3 minutes reading the question carefully, analyzing it, coming up with the answer and the reason and a little bit of the example before they start writing. Sometimes I get students who don't do that, who don't follow that method, and sometimes they tell me, oh, you know, I wrote the essay, and at the very end I realized that I didn't really answer the question. And that happens because you didn't spend time really understanding it and thinking about it. So that through those 3 minutes really make a huge impact. So after that you write, and you have 27 minutes to write. You already know from step 1 exactly how to do each part, so I'm going to show you. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to read the question out loud in the next step, next little section of the video. Then I'm going to make a circle outline, brainstorming. There are many methods to create an outline. This is one that I've seen be very effective with students. So it's one that I'm going to recommend that you try, and I'm going to show you so you can see exactly what I mean. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the paragraphs, the example paragraphs that I've written that follow the strategy that you should have learned in step 1. And you're going to see exactly how to produce that kind of essay. One of the things, I just want to say this before we begin, sometimes I get students who say this is very mechanical, very formulaic, and it seems somewhat repetitive. Well, I understand that, so I have a response to that. The first is that my goal was to make this clear, simple, and easy. And as a result, that means you have an essay that just follows a certain set of steps. And the wonderful thing about it is that I've tested that. So you can feel comfortable and confident in knowing that following those steps gets you the results that you need. And countless numbers of students have followed it towards success. So I want you to be confident in that so you can put it aside and just focus on getting it done, mastering it, and producing it. Remember, you only have 30 minutes to show fluency, and that's how you're going to do it. Nice, logical, step-by-step approach. So enough of that. Let me go ahead, move on to tell you what the question is, and then you'll see my 3-minute outline. So I'll be drawing the circles on the board, and you can see it. So let's go ahead and move on. So I've cleared the board. Now I'm going to put the outline, but before I begin, I'm going to read the question to you out loud. So let me go to my computer here. Now the question here is, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? People behave differently when they wear different clothes. Do you agree that different clothes influence the way people behave? Use specific examples to support your answer. So, real easy concept, sort of. Do the clothes that you wear impact the way that you behave? Now, the first thing that you want to do before you create your outline is go with your instinct. What do you feel? What do you think? Agreement or disagreement? Once you choose that, then what you're going to do is you're going to draw a center circle. In my case, I agree. I do believe that clothes influence your behavior. So in my center, I'm going to say clothes influence. Now that's what I'm going to do right away. I'm going to spend some time looking at that question, understanding exactly what it's asking me, forming my opinion, doing that very quickly, and then drawing that center circle that has my opinion. Now you have to do this within 3 minutes, so you have to work quickly, and that's where practice comes in, because you can be effective and really develop that skill. Now what I'm going to do is, from this circle, I'm going to think of anything that supports that. And these are reasons. Now don't get stuck and think they have to be very general or very powerful. Just get your brain going. Just get the ideas flowing. Just start writing. So the first thing I'm going to write is that clothes influence because people treat you differently. So I think clothes influence you because that affects the way people see you, and the way people treat you affects the way you behave. And then the next circle connected to the reason circle will be things for the example, the story that you tell to support yourself. So I can say, for example, weird clothes. People think you're weird, so maybe you're upset or something like that. Formal clothes. People think you're real serious, so you respond to that. Now let me think of another reason. We can have something like you choose clothes to match your behavior. Think about work. Think about exercise. Think about parties. Right? You wear clothes to match that environment that tells you how to act. What else? It influences your behavior because it shows your status, right? So if you want to look rich, you dress rich, you start to act rich. Kind of a similar idea to this, but just get the idea flowing. ... meaning you continue the idea. I think that this method, once you practice it, can really be effective. Now, you don't want to stop at 2 circles, even though you only need 2 reasons for a 4-paragraph essay, right? 2 body paragraphs. So the goal is to keep your brain going until those 2.5 to 3 minutes are over. Once you reach the point where you're finishing your 3 minutes that are designated for your outline, you want to choose the 2 best reasons. And that's the great thing about putting more than just 1 on the board, or more than just 2. You get an opportunity to choose what you think is best. You also get an opportunity to choose your examples. So you can really create a good, solid essay that you feel comfortable writing, because you're choosing the best things, the things that are strongest in your mind. Now, again, I'm going to review the concept. The first 3 minutes of your 30 minutes are spent analyzing the question, knowing exactly what it's asking you so you don't go off topic, putting down your opinion that you form quickly in a center circle, drawing connecting circles for general reasons. Don't have to be too general, don't stress, just get your ideas out there. And then your examples connected to those reason circles. You do that, you practice it, you get into the habit, you always do your best to think differently, try to come up with different ideas, and you're going to do pretty well. Now, with that done, I'm going to take this away, and I'm going to go ahead and put on the board my first example paragraph. Now, the reasons that I'm going to choose are, you choose the clothing to tell you how to behave, and your clothing affects the way people treat you, which affects the way you behave. Now, let's go ahead and move on, see that first essay, and see how we complete the steps. Now on the board, you see an example of my introduction, and you see that it's only composed of about 4 to 5 sentences. Your goal should be the same, no less than 4, and maybe 5 or 6 if you can. But remember the idea. You only want to spend 4 minutes on this. So 3 minutes on the outline and 4 minutes on the introduction. The words in bold are what you want to repeat over and over again in every essay. The topic is important. Then you explain why then. Some people believe that to restate the question, and then others disagree, in my view, for 2 important reasons. Now, how exactly do we use this? Well, remember, the topic is just one word that is the focus of the question. So, the clothes that you wear. You can say clothes are an important part of our lives, but I understand that clothes are part of your appearance. So, in my opinion, this topic, just like clothes, bigger idea, better word, is appearance. But if you're stuck and you don't know what the topic is, just choose one word from the question, just like we learned in step 1, like clothes, and you'll be fine. So, very easy. Our appearance is an important part of our lives. This never changes. It's always going to be basically the same thing. The next sentence explains, why is it important? Tell me why. Although this may not be ideal, ideal meaning perfect, our appearance determines what people think about us and how they treat us. That's why our appearance is important. So that's my explanation of the reason. Now we want to restate the question using some people. Some people believe that the clothes that we wear also influence our behavior. Then others disagree. Very important part, because what that does is that transitions from the general concept into the specific point that you're going to go into. So first step, topic is important. Second, tell me why. Third, restate the question. Some say this, others disagree. Last sentence, your opinion. In my view, they do influence our behavior for two important reasons. So in my view and for two important reasons are always repeated. Here are a couple things to keep in mind. 4 minutes only, just 4. Sometimes I notice students take way too much time on the introduction. One method that you can use not only for this essay, but for writing question number 1, is write the introduction last. If you really find yourself always going over time, don't mess up your essay. Go ahead to the first body paragraph and then write the introduction last when you have only a little bit of time so you won't waste it. Because just like in writing question number 1, the introduction does make a little difference, but it's not nearly as important as the body, which is the heart of the essay and your score. So, 4 general steps that you see here, nice and clear, 4 minutes, and make sure, here you can run into repetition. Some people say that the clothes that we wear also influence our behavior. Others disagree. Don't restate others disagree with this idea that the clothes that we wear also influence our behavior. It's too repetitive. Just 2 words. That's it. That way you can give your opinion and repeat the idea a little bit. Don't forget to use pronouns when you can to avoid repetition. And that's an example of our introduction. I hope that's clear. If not, go ahead and send me a tweet or Facebook or email or call, whatever you want. And that way I can make this very, very clear for you. Very important. Now let's move on and go to the second paragraph. Now you see in front of you the second paragraph, the first body paragraph, where I provide my first reason and support for it. This is a big one. It's going to take us some time to review this, but I'm going to make it very clear. There are 4 big parts to this paragraph. The first is your reason. You want your reason to be clear, simple, and in one sentence. That way there's no confusion for this important point that is the entire focus of your paragraph. It helps the person grading you because it makes it very easy for them, and it helps you because you know exactly what you want to say. So again, keep that reason to 1 sentence, simple words, make it really clear. We choose different clothes for different occasions to tell us how to behave. Don't forget your reason is always supporting your answer. The next thing you want to do is what students tend to have trouble with. So what you want to do in the next step is explain the logic behind it. How does your reason connect to your answer? I don't understand it. Make it make sense to me. If that's difficult for you, don't do it on the test because it wastes time if you're not comfortable with it. And the example is most important. You can add more words and it's much, much easier to produce. So again, I'm going to repeat this very important point. If this is hard for you, practice with it. But if you're not 100% able to understand how to create that general connection, don't do it on your test. But with practice, you'll get the idea, and also with reading the example essays. One easy way to begin, you don't have to begin this way, is when you use the you as a general word, which is the way we native speakers use it, and that's going to give you the at least good start of speaking generally. So, how do you choose clothes to tell you how to behave? When you want to be fun, you wear clothes that supports that behavior, fun clothes. When you want to be formal, you wear formal clothes, different clothes. 1 sentence, maybe 2, 3 maximum. Sometimes I see students write 4 to 5 sentences. Don't do that. You don't want to. It's a waste of time. It takes too much work and energy. 1 to 3 sentences, that's it. Then move on to your example. And always begin with, for example, for an instance. The when I depends on you. Now, the reason why I say use this word, for example, for instance, is because when you do, it triggers something in your brain. It lets you know, pushes you to remember that you have to give a specific example. If you don't use it or use a different word such as because, it's not going to do the same thing, and you might not really create the good essay you want to. The when I part, that's the easy way. The easy way is to draw on an example that's a personal experience. Now, the reason why I say an easy way is because a stronger, more academic way is to draw on your knowledge. Books you've read, articles in the newspaper, what's happening in the world, countries, cultures, bigger than just you. But if you don't have that knowledge in your head for the reason that you're trying to support, just make it easy. Why not? Now, one more thing. I know I'm giving a lot of information, but it's really important. A lot of students have a tendency to try to make this up. This example right here is my own true experience. This is real. Now, the reason why you want to make it real is because you want to create an example that's about 6 to 8 sentences. That's going to guarantee you a high score. And you can't really do that making it up. Because when you make it up, you speak generally. When you refer to something real that you know about, there are details in the story. It's easier for you to be more specific. So make sure to do that. So remember, your example supports what you just explained, shows how the reason leads to the answer. So my explanation was, I wore formal clothing because I was going to work. So I chose formal clothing for work to tell me how to behave. No accident. I wanted the clothes to match my work, serious and focused. Then I say, while working, I got to show that I chose it and that it influenced my behavior. I was a little more serious because of my clothing. My clothing doesn't really give me a chance to move, so I have to be a little more strict, a little more rigid, right? That affects and impacts you. You do it for a purpose. And when you look in the mirror, you know the job you're supposed to do. When you're dressed formally, you know you have to be serious and focused. So within my example, I talked about a real experience that showed that I chose my clothing for how I wanted to behave, and that clothing influenced my behavior. Now the last sentence that you want to have, just one and very short, or else it can be repetitive, is your concluding sentence. And you have many phrases, but what you do is you don't restate your example. You don't restate your general idea. What you do is you restate your answer, because that shows that this supports the answer. It keeps you focused, and in case your example isn't so good, it cleans your paragraph up and makes it strong again. So as you can see, the clothes that you wear do strongly impact your behavior. I didn't talk about work. I didn't talk about different clothes for different occasions. I restated my answer. Short, clean, and quick. So this paragraph should be around 10 sentences. That's your goal. 8 to 10 sentences. You do that and you're doing pretty well. So I hope that's clear. If not, let me know. But now let's go ahead and go to the third paragraph where you get to see this body paragraph and the idea behind it one more time. Okay, here's another big paragraph, the third paragraph. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. But one of the things that I want to mention before I continue is another general tip that's important. This is a lot of writing. There are a lot of words here. The only way you can produce these kinds of words, this many words, in 30 minutes, is if you don't constantly go back and correct yourself. When you practice, you want to avoid that habit. You want to think carefully in your outline so that you don't have to correct your ideas as you go on. Of course, you're going to do that a little bit, but if you make too much of a habit of it, you're going to produce half this many words. You don't want to do that. Your word count guarantees your score. If you're structured, you follow our steps, and you don't repeat yourself exactly, your word count determines your score. And 450 plus words is exactly what I'm teaching you how to do here, and that's exactly what's going to get you the highest score possible on this essay question. So remember that. Don't always go back and correct yourself. If you are, you need to change that, avoid that at all costs. because that will impact negatively your score. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and look at our 4 steps. Second, one sentence reason, very clear. Your clothes influences the way people treat you, and the way that people treat you affects your behavior. Then I have if you, which is just like when you, in the sense that it goes general and it explains the concept. Remember, if you can't do it comfortably, ignore it, skip it, because it's a waste of time. If you wear strange clothes, people may stare at you, think you're crazy, and however you may be feeling at that moment, people look at you crazy, maybe you get a little upset, you don't like it, it affects your behavior. Then I give a specific example. For instance, remember the easy way is to draw on personal references, but if you can draw on something you read in the newspaper or anything like that, it's a better habit, stronger essay. Now, what I want to do is show that someone wore something, affected how that person was treated, and then that person behaved differently. So how do I do that? I had a friend who always wore black clothing. I treated him differently because I didn't want to work with him. Thought he was too serious. So I finished work quickly. So he wore something, and I treated him differently. What happened? Well, one day we had a big project. We worked together. We were forced to keep going. I knew I was wrong. And we always talked. But we didn't before. We finished quickly. We wouldn't really talk to each other. So in the last sentence, I explained that I know I influenced his behavior. Because it says, I know if I had been more open, he would have felt more comfortable talking to me sooner. And the idea of that is in the fact that I didn't talk to him, he didn't talk to me. We worked together, I started talking to him, he started talking to me. So he was influenced by my behavior, and my behavior was influenced by his clothing. Then I repeat that concept with my concluding sentence. And again, it's really a repetition of the answer. But you can draw on your reason a little bit, as I did here. The way you dress really does influence how people treat you, which affects how you behave with them. So the way you dress affects how you behave. I repeat the answer. I added a few more words since I thought my reason was a little complex, so I wanted to make it very clear. Now, 4 steps, 9 minutes to write this essay. Remember that. Your outline takes 3 minutes, your introduction takes 4, and each body paragraph needs to be produced in 9 minutes. So you've got to get comfortable with it, really step by step, really focused, really logical. Don't repeat besides just following the steps. I hope that's clear. Let's move on to the conclusion. Our conclusion is the simplest paragraph, in my opinion, because it just has 3 steps and most of it is all general repetition. The first thing you're going to do is use in some. A lot of students change it, and for some reason they almost create that word. This is idiomatic, meaning it's like a vocabulary word. You can't just create it. So just be comfortable using something like in some or in conclusion. Now, you want to restate your reasons and your answer. So you can do that with not only, but also. In this case, since I thought whether reason 1 or reason 2 was a little bit more of a fit, so that's what I did. So whether your clothing influence is intentional because you chose it for a specific occasion, reason 1, or its influence is unintentional because you react to how someone treats you, reason 2. What you wear has a strong influence on how you behave, answer. So however you do it, make sure that you repeat your reasons nicely, strongly, completely, and your answer. Tell them what you told them. Tell them what you wrote. Now, the last sentence is what students tend to have difficulty with. So you just think about the fact that your last sentence needs to have the word should. We should all. Make a general recommendation or suggestion to the person reading that comes from your essay, that comes from your opinion. So since I spend so much time focusing on how clothes impacts you, my last sentence is a final suggestion that draws from that. That's why we should all choose what we wear very carefully. So that comes naturally from that concept. Don't worry so much about this sentence. just make a final suggestion that deals with your answer. If you're having a little if you're having a little difficulty with that, don't worry about it. Just make it whatever you think it should be, and if you really can, just get rid of it until you practice. Need help? Let me know again. That essay was 473 words, so this is an example of an essay that would get a perfect score. If you really want to guarantee it, try to hit 500. If you're writing between 450 to 500 words, following our structure, doing that in 30 minutes without repetition, you're going to do fine. You don't have to worry about this question. The wonderful thing about this is that once you get it mastered and you get it down, there's no trouble, there's no problem, because you're always doing the same thing, and you have the tool to help you know whether you're going to get the score you want. Now I'm going to take this away, but before I do that, we've spent 3 minutes on the outline, 4 minutes on the intro, 9 minutes on body 1 and body 2, and 3 minutes, really fast, really quick, on the conclusion. That leaves 2 minutes left. I know that's not a lot of time, so don't review your whole essay. But as you write, you probably are feeling something like the first paragraph isn't so good, or the second paragraph isn't so good. Use your 2 minutes for that. So let me go ahead and get rid of this and leave you with some final words. Here are the final points that I want to make. Move. Okay, what does that mean? Well, remember the concept that I told you about earlier? Don't stay focused on one sentence, trying to rewrite it or get it perfect, or even 2 sentences, or even 1 paragraph. Keep writing. This is a time test where a great deal of your score comes from your word count. I can't emphasize that enough. So you want to make sure that you know that and use that to help motivate you to keep going. And think about it. If you're stuck on explaining something, isn't it better to keep moving, develop your concept and idea, move on to the next reason and example, then finish that and then go back, giving yourself some time away from that specific thing you were working on so you have a little bit of a fresher mind to attack it? It works, it makes a difference, so that's an important tip. The next thing is follow. What does that mean? These strategies and these steps have been designed over years by me taking the test, working with students, and helping students achieve success. So it works, it makes a difference, it's an impact that's going to appear in your score. So I just want you to trust it and master it. There are 100 ways to write an essay to get a perfect score. I teach this way not because it's the best, strongest essay, but because it's a good essay that will get you your score. It's the simplest to produce, it's the easiest to move forward from, it's the most general, so it doesn't change for this question or that question. You use it for basically everything. So do your best to follow. You have any questions, don't know, let me know. Practice. This question is incredibly controlled. The question may vary, but your answer to it is always going to be the same. So if you practice enough, this really is going to be a piece of cake. You're just going to go through it like nothing. So make sure to practice until you feel that confidence that no question can keep you down. SVO, subject, verb, object, a general tip that I notice. Not often, but sometimes. Students think, and they just throw out what they're thinking as they're thinking, without realizing that they're writing an essay, and that someone is trying to understand them through their words. And native speakers understand you through the subject, verb, and object. So make sure you're clear that you're logically moving from one sentence to another, developing the idea. Don't just write down what you're thinking. Make sure that you're taking steps forward from what you have written, so it's step-by-step clear. Last thing, word count, final words. 450 to 500 words is your goal. You do that, you have no problem. 400 words is okay, 300, that's when you start getting the 20s to the 25s. So oftentimes 300 isn't really going to give you a 25, at least not on question number 2 of the writing section. If you really want to guarantee it, 400 plus is your goal. Keep practicing until you get there. And remember, only give yourself 30 minutes. Practice a few essays, do your homework, send them over to me. Only 30 minutes. Send me what you produce in 30 minutes. That way I can not only give you tips to improve the essay, but to improve your ability to write it in that time. So that's it. I hope this was clear and you learned a lot and you have a lot of information and you're as confident in your success as I am. So good job. Make sure that you study hard, work hard, stay in contact with me. Let's get your score. And that does it for writing question number 2.